Hello and welcome to The Artful Chef. In our last video, we learned how to draw the human eye from the frontal view. We have been talking about drawing the different parts of the body. So today we're going to be talking about the eye again, but this time we're going to be talking about the profile view and how that would look if you drew that from the side. So let's get started. So in this video, we are using similar materials that we used the last time. So I have a couple of different types of graphite pencil. I've got an H, a 2B, a 6B. I have a mechanical pencil, a micron pen for fine details. I have a couple of different erasers, and I have some tortillons and a blending stump. You do not have to have these things to be able to do this drawing. You can use a tissue, you can use Q-tips, you can use your finger. It's really versatile on your shading. I just happen to have these on hand, so I'm using them for the drawing. So today we are talking about the eyeball itself from the side view. So I'm going to begin by drawing a circle or a sphere, just like we started out with the frontal view. It's going to be a pretty large one, you know, in comparison to the size of the paper. If you are not comfortable with your circle, you can always trace something, but I recommend that you just try. You can always sketch around what you first lay down and to get it round, because you're going to go back eventually and you're going to erase some of those lines anyway, so it will be okay if you have that on there. So we're first going to draw the cornea. So the cornea is that part that comes out that's like a little bump on the outside, because remember, this is a profile view of this eyeball. So the cornea is going to be about half the size of the circumference. So we're going to stick that out there like that. Then we're going to come in and we're going to draw the iris. So the iris is going to be a little larger here than the cornea. It is circular. And then in the middle of the iris, but not all the way to the cornea, we are going to draw a skinny oval. This is the pupil. The reason we are drawing it skinny is because it is the side view. And then we're going to go in and erase the unnecessary line here. So we will erase the rest of this line in just a moment, but we're going to start by adding the upper lid and the lower lid. So what we're going to do to add the upper lid is we're going to come out to about the center here. We're going to come out to the top of the iris. Now remember that the upper lid usually overlaps the iris a little bit, so I'm going just below where the top of the iris is, and I'm going to come out past the eye and make this little curve to represent the eyelid that's curving around the outer part of the eye, since this is a side view. Then I'm going to come down for the bottom lash, or the bottom eyelid rather. And I actually did that a little too high. So the bottom lid should come just below the iris, especially on a side view. You're going to see more of that than you would if it was from the frontal view. So I'm going to come down just below that. And then I'm going to curve out this way to give it the look of, you know, the side view. So that's how you begin with those lines. Then we're going to work on our creases and where to place our eyebrows. So the first thing I want to think about is on our eyebrow, I want you to draw a very, very light line that goes from the edge of the cornea up at an angle. We're going to draw a straight line from the edge of the eyelid up here, and we're going to put the tail of the the eyebrow back here. So back where this eyelid ends, I want you to sketch a little light line here. So this is going to be the beginning of the eyebrow itself. This is going to be the arch line, and this is going to be the tail point. So we will use those lines in just a minute. We're going to erase the unnecessary lines right here. Right, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to think about our light source. So you always have a light source. Our light source, our imaginary light source, is going to be coming from this direction. Remember that if you have a light source and you have a reflection, on the cornea itself or on the eyeball, it's curved. So all of your reflections are going to curve to show that curvature of the eye. So if you have a square light or a rectangular light that you're trying to represent, it would look like this actually on the eyeball itself. Or if you have a window, it's going to be a square, but it's going to be a curved square. So keeping that in mind, we're going to go ahead and add our reflection. If you want your reflection to look like something's blocking part of the light, you can represent that by having part of it gone. It's really up to you on how you do your reflection. I want to have a little bit of a reflection on the edge of the light of the eyeball as well. Since the light is hitting it from the front, we're going to draw another line right here. And then we're going to color in our pupil. Now our pupil is the darkest value. This is the darkest color on your eye. Remember not to color in your highlight, so make sure you leave that empty. So I have colored in my pupil. I'm going to go in and lightly shade in the iris. So I want to start lightly and work my way out. So I'm going to cover the whole surface, except for the highlight areas. It does work better if you blend as you go. That way you don't smear anything in the process as you're going. I'm just going to come in here and blend this value that I have just put down. Using the graphite that is already on my tortillon here, I'm just going to color in a little bit of this highlight. Then I'm going to come in and darken up the edge. And I'm going to darken this edge. Now we have a cast shadow that comes from the eyelid itself, and the eye with the light hitting it from this angle is going to naturally be a little bit darker up here than it would be down closer to the bottom. So I'm going to put another value here. And then I'm going to color in the edge just a little bit darker so I can define the edge of the iris. And I'm going to blend this out. To add details to the iris itself, if you think of the iris like we did in the original frontward facing view, the iris is going to be a little more egg-shaped now than it was before, but you still have the same concept. So if this is your pupil and you have these lines that radiate out from the center, the difference is they're going to curve as they go around. So you want to vary their distances apart. You can either erase and take away to do this with an eraser, or you can do it with your pencil. I'm just going to do it with my pencil. Making sure not to go through your highlighted area. And if you do get that highlighted area a little dirty, all you have to do is go in with your eraser and just clean it up a little bit. So now we're going to put in these skin folds. So we need to represent the edge of the top of the first eyelid. So this is going to follow the lid that you have here, and it is going to curve out past the eye. And then you can erase the unnecessary part that is left over from where you drew the eyeball itself. We're going to do the same thing on the bottom, but this is going to be a much smaller line, much closer to the bottom eyelid. It's going to come out and wrap around. These are the points that we're going to use for our eyelashes at a later time. So now we want to show that fold in the eye where when you open your eye, it creates that crease. So we're going to draw that crease that's there very lightly. It's going to come out a little bit past. And then now that we have our crease, we want to just roughly draw in our eyebrow. So we don't want to put it very heavy right now. It's very light, but we're just going to outline the shape. So if this is the beginning out here of our eyebrow, this is where the arch comes to. And our tail of our eyebrow comes down here to this point. And then you can finish shaping that in. And you can erase these lines that you've drawn as your guides. Now that we have all the unnecessary lines out of the way, we can begin our shading. So we're going to shade very lightly, a light value, because we do want to give this eyelid right here a little bit of color, but we don't want to make it too dark. Now above the edge of it, it is going to be a little bit darker, so you can see that difference. You're going to have a lighter value in between and a darker value where the crease is. And as you do this, keep in mind that you are following that curvature, and then you can blend. You want to make sure you do any blending before you start adding the individual eyelashes and the eyebrow hairs, because it's a lot harder to go in and blend afterwards, because then you end up blending those fine details. So blend that. That's going to come down around the eye because this is the skin, obviously, that's next to the nose. You're going to shade just a little bit above up here under the eyebrow. Remember, your light source is coming from the front, so it's going to be darker back near the end of the eyebrow and lighter up close to the front. Down below the eye, we're going to shade lightly. We want to show these curvatures or slight wrinkles that happen where the bag of the eye is. You want to blend that in softly, and that's much easier blended if you do that with your finger. You get a little bit softer look. All right, now we want to go in, we want to fill in the white of the eye here. Now the light is hitting it. You have a cast shadow from the eyelid itself, so you're going to have a darker value here. It's going to get darker as it comes back, but it's going to be the lightest here closest to the iris. So I'm going to have my darker values here. I'm going to have them come up towards the back. Remember to do your contour shading so it follows the shape of the eye. And rather than filling in this space right here, I'm actually going to use what moves from my blending stick here to fill in that area so that it has a little bit of color, but it's not heavily colored. And now we're going to add some very fine details to the eyeball itself. So we're going to make some little veins in the eyeball itself. So I'm going to darken this edge just a little here so you can see where that eyelid is. And then with my mechanical pencil, because it has a very fine tip, you can get a lot of very small details. So we're going to go in and we're going to add just these little veins and vessels that you see coming from the back of the eye when you look at it from the side. After you have added that, you can go in. I'm going to make this edge of the iris a little darker now that I've blended that cornea. And then we can go in and start adding the eyelashes. So one thing to think about when you are doing eyelashes is from the side view, the eyelashes are actually going to come out like this. So they still have a little curve, a little J hook to them, but they're going to come out and down and then up. So you want to make sure that you are varying their direction so that they look more realistic. And you don't want to do too many. It's kind of overkill if you do too many. Keep them shorter as they go back closer to the back of the eye. And remember, don't forget about this side of the eye over here. Same thing for the bottom. So on the bottom one, you're going to come out from this little ledge that you created. They're going to get shorter and more sparse as they go back. And when you get ready to do the eyebrow, you want to give it a little bit of color first. So you're going to put just a little bit of pencil down, blend it out so you have something there. And then you're going to think of it in two zones. So if this is your eyebrow, this is zone 1 and zone 2. The hairs in zone 1 go up and arch their way back, and the hairs in zone 2 angle down. So we're going to go in, we're going to lightly show this zone 1, and we're just going to start filling in those hairs so they angle up and back. You might have a couple of unruly ones here in the front that go the opposite direction, and then these in the zone 2 all angle towards the back. All right, and you could go in and you could add more detail to the face. If you wanted to add the rest of the features, you could, but as of right now, this is an example of a side view of the eye. If you wanted to add highlights into the white areas, you could always take a gel pen and fill it in. You could take a white colored pencil, or if you have a kneaded eraser, you can erase some of that graphite to brighten up the area. Typically you have some wet looking spots on the eyelid right there close to the back of the eye. And that is our finished side view of our eye. Thank you for joining me today on this tutorial on how to draw the eye from the profile view. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, please make sure you drop them below and I'll try to get back to you. If you have not subscribed to our channel, please make sure you do so you can get notifications when we have new videos come out.